He crumpled the report and called the analyst useless. 24 hours later, the analyst sits in the CEO's chair. The billionaire wipes coffee tables. The mouse became the owner and the king fell. The morning in New York was a ceaseless race of ambition and noise. The stage is set for the story of Elias Santos and Marcus Sterling, a tale of scorn and reversal of fate. But before we dive into the drama, we ask that you tell us in the comments where you are watching from. And at the end, don't forget to rate this story from 0 to 10. Enjoy the story, and if you like the plot, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next act of justice. Julian was a predator in his habitat, a bespoke suit, a watch that flashed millions on his wrist, and an impatience that turned any delay into a personal offense. He was on his way to an emergency meeting about the financing of his life's project, the Sterling Tower skyscraper. For Julian, every second was gold, and any human being who obstructed his path was, at best, a nuisance. The scene of the injustice was the Daily Grind, a simple yet cozy coffee shop nestled in the intimidating shadow of the Sterling Enterprises headquarters. There, behind the counter, working with the serenity of one who values honest toil, was Elias Santos. Elias was the underestimated protagonist, a junior financial analyst at Sterling Capital, but no one knew he was the hidden genius and billionaire heir. He used simplicity as a disguise. He was not an analyst. He was a spy. Despite being a genius in mathematics and finance, Elias was constantly the target of his boss, Marcus Sterling, the arrogant CEO of Sterling Capital. Marcus used Elias as his stress punching bag, humiliating him for his simple appearance and humble social origins, which, ironically, he faked. The conflict erupted in the coffee shop where Elias was on a quick break. Marcus, furious about a report, burst into the cafe and demanded that Elias follow him immediately. The final insult, Marcus, without patience, grabbed the report Elias had just finished. Instead of reading it, he crumpled it with contempt and threw it on the floor, right in the middle of the cafe. "You useless idiot! You can't even make a decent copy. I don't pay you to waste my time with this nonsense. Pick that up, coffee assistant, and follow me, and prepare for hell." The humiliation was public and total. Elias felt the heat of scorn, not from weakness, but from outrage. Marcus turned his back, expecting Elias to pick up the report from the floor and follow him. Elias did not pick up the report. He stood still, looking at the crumpled paper on the floor and his boss's arrogant back. Elias's humiliation had reached its limit. He could no longer tolerate Marcus's cruelty. He grabbed his backpack and walked to his desk, ignoring the customers and colleagues. Instead of following Marcus, Elias sat at his desk and wrote his resignation letter. The letter was short and final. It contained a single enigmatic sentence. "I resign. Your empire is about to change hands." Elias sent the letter via email, and then with a cold calm picked up his cell phone. He did not call a friend. He called his lawyer in Zurich, activating the final hostile takeover plan he had prepared for years. The game was over for the coffee assistant. Elias Santos's cell phone, a discreet old model, was ringing the Zurich number, while Marcus Sterling, somewhere on the 60th floor, was seething with anger over the resignation letter. Elias was walking out of the building, the New York sun seeming brighter on his face. The resignation was not the end of his journey, it was the start of the climax. Elias Santos was not Elias Santos. His real name was Elias Vance Sterling. He was the billionaire heir and sole survivor of Vance Global, a holding company that dominated the tech sector. At 20, Elias lost his parents in a tragic accident. The empire fell into his hands, but he placed it under the management of a trusted board while he prepared himself. The choice to work as a junior analyst under the false name of Elias Santos was intentional. He needed to understand the market from the inside, especially Sterling Capital.
Elias's mission was personal and profound. Years earlier, his father had been a mentor and partner to Marcus Sterling. Marcus, taking advantage of a health crisis suffered by Elias's father, betrayed his trust, diverting corporate secrets and crucial funds to found Sterling Capital on the ruins of the original Vance company. The act was not just a financial crime, it was a betrayal that led to his father's emotional ruin. Elias had sworn that one day he would not only recover what Marcus had stolen, but also prove to him the true price of arrogance. His humble position at Sterling Capital was a school of espionage. He was mapping all of Marcus's financial vulnerabilities, all the obscure deals, and all the hidden liabilities using the very tools Marcus despised. Elias now revealed to the public, the reader, the magnitude of his power. He was not resigning out of weakness, he was resigning because his hostile takeover plan for Sterling Capital was 99% complete. During the years Marcus humiliated him, Elias silently used his massive resources from Zurich to buy the debt and preferred stock of Sterling Capital through impenetrable shell funds. He had waited for the exact moment the company was most vulnerable. The Sterling Tower project was the perfect timing as Marcus was overloaded with loans. Elias's resignation letter was the signal that he was ready to activate the CEO deposition clause that he had subtly inserted into the debt documents that Marcus, in his arrogance, never bothered to read completely. Elias's phone was answered on the other end of the line, a formal, grave Swiss voice. "Dr. Roth, it's Elias. I sent the letter. The target is blind. The moment is now." "Understood, Mr. Sterling. The acquisition of 51% of the debt was completed 10 minutes ago. The notice of deposition for CEO Marcus Sterling will be delivered to the Sterling Capital Board of Directors in 5 minutes. The game is over, Marcus, and your coffee assistant is the one holding the pen." Elias ended the call and smiled. Revenge was not sweet, it was surgical. He became the spectator of his own artwork.
On the 60th floor of Sterling Capital, Marcus Sterling's fury over Elias Santos's resignation letter quickly gave way to scorn. He summoned his right-hand man, Victor, to witness his superiority. "Victor, come see this," Marcus bellowed, throwing the printed copy of Elias's letter onto the desk. "That worm, the coffee assistant, thought he could challenge me. 'I resign,' he says. I made him cry, Victor. He ran away." Marcus laughed, a dry, cruel sound that echoed in the boardroom. "This is the problem with poor people, Victor. They don't understand the value of pressure. I called him useless, made him fetch coffee, and he cracked. I crushed him. He's just an office mouse." Marcus picked up the letter, which contained the enigmatic sentence, and theatrically ripped it to shreds with satisfaction. "I shred your resignation, Elias Santos. You are irrelevant." Marcus's laughter was deafening, but it was abruptly interrupted by the urgent ringing of his private phone. It was David Chen, the chief legal counsel for Sterling Capital, and Chen's voice was filled with genuine panic. "Marcus, did you see the email? No, not Elias's, the other one, the Zurich fund. They made their move. All hell has broken loose." Marcus's face twisted in confusion. "Zurich? What the hell are you talking about, Chen?" "The debt, Marcus. Someone just bought 51% of Sterling Capital's corporate debt. It's an anonymous fund, the Vanguard Group, and they just activated the deposition clause that you signed in the tower loans. They have the legal power to fire you." Marcus felt his blood run cold. He staggered backward, falling into his chair. The deposition clause was a risk he had accepted in his arrogance, convinced he would never lose control. "No, Chen, that's impossible. Trace the fund. Who is behind the Vanguard Group? This is illegal. I am the CEO. I am Marcus Sterling." Victor tried to scream, but his voice failed. Chen, on the other end of the line, was hysterical. "It's impenetrable, Marcus.
The fund is registered across dozens of offshore companies. They covered all their tracks. The board is panicking. News of the debt acquisition has leaked and the stock is in free fall." Marcus realized too late that the office mouse he had humiliated was not the biggest problem. The problem was the ghost using his own method, financial power, to destroy him. Time had become his deadliest enemy. Marcus's panic was sealed by a formal email. The Sterling Capital Board of Directors convened an emergency meeting in 24 hours to vote on Marcus's removal and the debt restructuring. Marcus's only chance to survive was to find the owner of the fund and reverse the situation. Amidst the paperwork and Elias's crumpled report, Marcus looked up, desperate. The only person he knew with the analytical mind and genius to trace a corporate ghost was the assistant he had just called useless. The tables had turned. Marcus, the CEO, needed to beg the office mouse he had fired for help.
The emergency board meeting was scheduled for 24 hours from then. Marcus Sterling was in a race against the clock and a financial ghost. Panic had evaporated his arrogance, leaving behind only the raw skin of fear. Marcus spent the entire night in his 60th floor office, downing whiskey and yelling on the phone. He activated all his connections on Wall Street and in international law firms. "I want the name. I want to know who is behind the Vanguard Group. Use every resource. I authorize any bribe," he roared, his voice hoarse and his eyes bloodshot. However, Elias's shield was impenetrable. The Zurich funds had been configured to withstand exactly this type of attack. His lawyers called back with identical reports. "Mr. Sterling, the fund is anonymous. There is no way to trace the owner. The structure is perfect. They covered all their tracks." The narrative expansion focuses on Marcus's sleepless nights. He was sitting at the desk where he once dictated sentences, now reduced to a sweaty, paranoid executive rifling through useless reports. He broke down completely, yelling at a secretary, accusing his right-hand man, Victor, of sabotage. The contrast between the Julian in Part 1 and Marcus now is proof of the effectiveness of the revenge. The next morning, with only 12 hours remaining, Marcus was at his lowest point. He looked at the pile of financial reports he couldn't decipher, and his mind, in its despair, made an ironic connection. The numbers, the tracing, the analytical genius. Marcus remembered Elias Santos. That assistant he called Office Mouse had a photographic memory and a data analysis capacity that surpassed that of any of his senior executives. Elias was the only person who could have the coldness and intelligence to track a Zurich ghost. I need him. I need the worm I humiliated. I need that office mouse. My arrogance cost me my only savior. If I lose this company because of my pride, I lose everything. Necessity crushed his ego. Marcus picked up his phone and with a trembling hand dialed the number he had scorned in his address book. Elias's phone rang. Elias answered on the first ring. His voice, however, was not that of the scared intern. It was cold, formal, and distant. "Elias," Marcus said, forcing every syllable out of his throat. I made a mistake. I need you. The company is in crisis. You are the only one who can trace the debt. I'll give you any position you want. I'll give you any money you want. I beg you. Please come back. Please save me." Elias listened in silence to his ex-boss's pathetic plea. He had waited 5 years for this moment. "Mr. Sterling, I am not interested in your money. I am interested in something else. I agree to meet with you, but it will be on my terms. I will be there tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. at the Daily Grind, the coffee shop, the place where you publicly humiliated me. Come alone, and come prepared to convince me. Otherwise, you will lose your company in a few hours." Elias ended the call. Marcus was in panic. The scene of his greatest humiliation would now become the stage for his plea. The reversal of roles was complete.
At 8 a.m. the next morning, the Daily Grind coffee shop was quiet and nearly empty.
This location, a witness to Marcus Sterling's greatest arrogance, was now the stage for his deepest despair. Marcus Sterling walked into the cafe. He wasn't wearing his bespoke suit. He wore an expensive but visibly wrinkled suit, a reflection of his night of insomnia and panic. His face was pale and tired. He looked around and saw Elias Santos sitting at a corner table. Elias was impeccable. He wore a simple gray suit, but perfectly tailored, an outfit that exuded calm and contained power. He was no longer the frightened intern. He was a general. The table was a reversed mirror of the old hierarchy. Marcus was there as the supplicant, Elias as the judge. Marcus walked to the table, swallowing his pride. "Elias," he said, his voice strained and weak, "thank you for coming. I am so sorry for what happened. I was under pressure." Elias did not invite him to sit. He merely looked at the coffee he was drinking and the crumbled report Marcus had thrown on the office floor, now perfectly restored. Marcus sat down uninvited. He opened his briefcase and pulled out a check. "Elias, I need you. You are the only one. I'll give you a threefold raise. I'll give you the vice president position. I'll give you my beach house. I beg you, please forget what happened. You are the only one who can trace the debt. My company, my legacy depend on you." Elias listened patiently. His gaze was one of cold contempt, no longer pain. He allowed Marcus to humiliate himself to the extreme, detailing the offer of exorbitant salaries and promotions, exposing his weakness. "Mr. Sterling," Elias finally replied, his voice calm and distant, "I am not interested in your money. I am interested in justice." "Justice? What are you talking about, Elias? I'm offering you a new future," Marcus pleaded. "Justice, Marcus, is more expensive than your company," Elias explained, his voice becoming more incisive. "You didn't humiliate me because I was incompetent. You humiliated me because I was vulnerable. You used your position to destroy the dignity of those without power, and it is for that lack of character that you are about to lose everything. I will only return if you admit the truth." Marcus, desperate, looked around the cafe where the previous humiliation had occurred. He finally yielded. I admit it. I was wrong, Elias. I was a tyrant. I treated you like trash. I was arrogant. I was blind. You are the best analyst I've ever had. I am guilty." The admission of guilt was all Elias needed. He stood up, brushing invisible crumbs from his suit. "Your admission is sufficient, Mr. Sterling, but I cannot simply return." He pulled a card from his wallet, not the junior analyst card, but a luxury card with a printed name Marcus did not recognize. "I cannot help Sterling Capital directly. I can only speak with the true power behind this crisis. I can only negotiate with the owner of the fund that bought the debt. You need to find him, Mr. Sterling. It is the only way. I will make the call, but I will not represent you. You must face the creditor." Elias turned and walked out of the cafe, leaving Marcus alone, confused, and with the unknown creditor's name in his hands. Marcus's next meeting would not be with the office mouse, but with the true owner of his company's destiny.
The business card that Elias Santos handed to Marcus Sterling was the CEO's only hope. The card had no name, just a phone number and the stylized logo of the Vanguard Group, the fund that owned his debt.
Marcus spent the rest of the day frantically calling, begging for a meeting with the owner. Finally, the meeting was scheduled, not in Zurich, but at the Sterling Capital headquarters on the 60th floor. Marcus was instructed to attend the main conference room alone after business hours. The tone of the assistant who called was cold and full of authority. Marcus entered the conference room. The room was dim, lit only by the low lights of the New York skyline. He searched for the magnate from Zurich, the ghost who had ruined him. He expected an old investor or a ruthless lawyer. But the mahogany table was empty, save for a figure sitting in the CEO's chair, the chair Marcus had occupied for years. The figure had his back to the door, looking out at the city through the glass wall. Marcus cleared his throat, trying to regain his lost authority. "Where is the owner of the fund? I am ready to negotiate the debt and reverse this situation." The figure slowly turned around. Dressed in a bespoke suit, the cut was sharp and impeccable. His face was calm, cold, and dominating. It was Elias Santos. Marcus's shock was physical. He staggered backward, terrified and incredulous. He looked at the intern, then at the CEO's chair. "Elias? What are you doing? Where is the creditor?" Elias smiled, a smile empty of warmth but full of power. He gestured to Marcus's chair. "Sit down, Marcus. There's no one else. The meeting is between us." Elias did not yell. He spoke with a sniper's precision. "You wanted to know who was behind the Vanguard Group, Marcus. You wanted to know who bought your debt." Elias picked up a gold pen and wrote a name on a piece of paper. Elias Vance Sterling. He pushed the paper toward Marcus. "My full name is Elias Vance Sterling. The Vance comes from my father, the man you betrayed, whom you defrauded, and from whom you stole to found Sterling Capital. You destroyed him, and I swore that one day I would take back everything you took. Not just the money, but the name and the legacy." Marcus collapsed into the chair. The truth was more destructive than any fraud. You are the heir. You set this up." "Yes, I set this up. The humiliation at the coffee shop, the resignation letter, the Vanguard Group, all part of the plan I started when I joined this company as your coffee assistant." "And what about the creditor?" Marcus asked, his voice a pathetic whisper of hope. Elias stood up. "The creditor is me. I am the sole owner of the debt. You begged me to save your company, but the man you mistreated was the only one who could buy it. You lost everything, Marcus." Elias allowed no further pleas. He picked up the transfer documents that were ready. "The transfer documents have already been completed. The board is waiting for my call. As of now, Elias Vance Sterling is the CEO of Sterling Capital." Elias signed the papers coldly. He looked at Marcus, who was in shock. "You are fired, Marcus, immediately. Your loss of position is not because of the debt. It is because of your lack of character. Security?" The game was over. The former junior analyst was on the throne, and the arrogant CEO was about to discover the cost of his scorn. The sound of Elias Vance Sterling's voice triggered the conference room doors. 2 corporate security guards, briefed by Elias on the situation, entered. Marcus Sterling was on his knees, defeated, but fate had reserved a humiliation for him that went beyond the loss of money. "Escort Mr. Sterling out," Elias ordered, his voice calm but final. "He represents a risk of fraud to the company, and his access must be revoked immediately." Marcus tried to fight. "No, you can't do this. I am the owner. I am Marcus Sterling." The guards discreetly handcuffed him and forced him out of his own headquarters. Marcus's humiliation was total. He looked at the door of his office, where he once dictated sentences, and at the executives walking by. No one supported him. No one looked at him. The corporate coldness he had imposed was now turned against him. He lost his job, his status, and all social support in a matter of minutes. Elias, now sitting in the CEO's chair, showed no satisfaction but a cold focus on justice. He knew prison was too easy. The real punishment was the role reversal. He activated the communication system and called his lawyer, Dr. Roth. Roth, I have a new clause to add to the agreement. Marcus Sterling violated the law, and the evidence is clear. But total justice will not be prison. Elias turned to the window, looking down at the humble, the daily grind coffee shop, the site of his initial humiliation. As a condition for not pursuing federal charges for fraud and diversion, and to protect the name of Sterling Capital, Marcus will accept a form of supervised community service. Elias explained his final revenge. Marcus would be forced to work as a counter-employee at the Daily Grind coffee shop, the very place where he humiliated Elias. He would work for 1 year, wearing the uniform and receiving minimum wage. The role reversal was total and ironic. Elias did not stop there. He immediately initiated the restructuring of Sterling Capital. The money diverted by Marcus was returned to the funds. Elias changed the company's name, cleaned out the board of directors, and implemented a new culture of respect and merit, in honor of his father's original vision. The phone rang. It was Marcus's lawyer, calling from an unknown location, desperate. Mr. Sterling, I heard the condition. My client accepts. He accepts the community service. He begs you not to prosecute him. Marcus, the billion-dollar CEO, was forced to wear the coffee uniform. Days later, Elias visited the Daily Grind, and there was Marcus wearing the coffee apron, cleaning the floor he once scorned, serving customers with the forced smile of defeat. The lesson in humility had begun, and Elias's revenge was complete and perfectly ironic.
The drama was complete. At the Daily Grind, the smell of coffee mixed with the smell of humiliation. Elias Vance Sterling, the new CEO of Sterling Capital, visited the cafe 1 week after the ascent of his empire. He wasn't there for coffee. He was there to observe. And there he was, Marcus Sterling, the ex-CEO, now dressed in the modest uniform, wiping down tables with the same servitude he had imposed on others. The man who scoffed at minimum wage was now forced to live it. The punishment was the reversal of roles and the restoration of dignity. The story of Elias and Marcus is a relentless reminder that true power is not in the title, but in character and vision. Marcus had the wealth, but not the intelligence to recognize the genius he used as a punching bag. His arrogance blinded him to the fact that the person he despised the most was the only one who had the power to buy him and bring him down. Marcus's fate proves that cruelty against the vulnerable is a leader's greatest mistake. Elias did not seek money. He sought the correction of injustice and the honor of his father. He used humility as a weapon and patience as his greatest strategy. Now, Marcus's fate is in your hands. Was the punishment Elias imposed on Marcus, forcing him to work as a counter-attendant in the cafe where he humiliated others, fair? Does the boss, who committed fraud and abused his power, deserve to work at the cafe for a year instead of going to prison? Was Elias fair, or was he too vengeful? Leave your honest comment below and share your opinion. Your verdict on the cost of arrogance is the heart of our debate. If this epic story of role reversal, corporate karma, and the triumph of the hidden genius touched you,
Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave a like so we can continue to explore impressive stories of justice and stunning twists. Thank you for watching.